Okay, so good evening to everyone. Welcome to probably the last session of this Maha Satipatthana Sutta. And before we start, we are going to pay respects to the Buddha. So we have 3 bows. First bow, second bow, third bow. And proceed to the opening chant, homage. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. And the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi. Adinādāna vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi. Kāmesu micchācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi. Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi. Suramēraya majjapamādāṭthāna vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samadhiyāmi. Okay, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So good evening to those who make it to the Zoom because we're unable to live stream. So we're going to just continue sharing the last portion. So previously we stopped on the first noble truth, or we ended on the first noble truth. We're about to finish. We covered the 4th foundation of mindfulness already. So we are at the finishing stretch. So just basically complete the 4 noble truths to end this chapter. So now we're going to start on the 2nd noble truth. All right. So we are back to this continuation. Now we're on the 2nd noble truth. And first noble truth, we talk about the definitions of this birth, aging, sickness, death. Not much of sickness, yeah, but death, separation from loved one, not getting what you want, associating people you don't like, and eventually this 5 clinging aggregates. And now we're going to talk about the cause of this suffering, which is the 2nd noble truth. So just briefly read through the slides. And what is the noble truth of the origination of stress? The craving that makes for further becoming, accompanied by passion and delight, relishing now here and now there, i.e. craving for sensuality, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. So these are the 3 kinds of cravings. Yeah, so craving for sensuality is the greed, anything sensual that's nice, you want it as craving for sensuality. Craving for becoming would usually be like delusion. And delusion, something you want it to stay forever. If let's say a person enter a certain state of concentration, maybe jhanic concentration, they want it to be there forever. Like most meditators, they have the tendency to not row the boat. Like in our routine, we always mention continue, apply the right thought. Usually they won't, they just like to stay there, and it becomes a kind of delusion, a sense of permanence. And it can be a sensual kind of becoming also, like you want to live forever, you want to be healthy forever. So that is a kind of um, sensual kind of delusion. And last one, craving for non-becoming. So that would be the aversion. You want to destroy, you want to get rid. So these are the three kinds of craving. So you can simply like rephrase into greed, anger, and delusion. Okay, and what does this craving when arising arise? And where, when dwelling, does it dwell? Whatever seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world, that is where this craving when arising arises. That is where when dwelling it dwells. Okay, so basically, whatever is pleasing to your senses, yeah, so this craving will arise, right? So this is the Buddha statement, endearing and agreeable in terms of the world. In terms of the samsaric world, how samsara operates in terms of greed and anger, right? As long as however you react as greed and anger, then this craving will arise and it will maintain that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about something like the dependent origination of craving. So in this particular sutta, is still the same sutta. And what seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world, the eye seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world. That is, when this craving, when arising arises, that is where when dwelling it dwells. So not just the eye organ, he talks about the next point, all the other senses, all the organs, the ear, nose, tongue, the body, and the intellect. So these are our 6 senses in Buddhism. And not just the internal organs, but also the external stimuli, the external contact. I won't say contact, external object. So what are the external objects? Forms seen by the eye, sounds by the ear, smells by the nose, taste by the tongue, tactile sensations by the body, and ideas from the mind. So these are the 6 external media, and sort of the so-called in-between or the end product. Normally in dependent origination, we say depending on the eye, depending on the forms, then eye consciousness arise. So interestingly, in the Buddha place, consciousness arise after, when it's depending on your cognitive equipment. The Buddha don't want to put like, okay, the consciousness is like permanently there. So in this working formula, or we call it practical working formula for us to cultivate, the consciousness has to be seen operating as dependent arising consciousness. It is not like something that's omnipresent and there all the time. So that would be like the enlightened mind. So if we are not there yet, we should use this formula. So eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, intellect consciousness. So these are the 6 sense consciousness. Right? So depending on the organs, depending on the external object and the various types of sense consciousness arise. So it depends on the first two factors. So this is more like the result of these two. Okay. Then once you have the three, then it conditions eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, intellect contact. And once you have contact, then it conditions feeling. Yeah, feeling born of eye contact, feeling born of ear contact, so on and so forth. All the senses from the feelings. And then once you have feelings, then we have perceptions. I think last year we covered this topic on papanjan, this proliferation of thoughts. Then perception is one of them. So perception of forms, perception of sound, and all the other senses. And once you have different perceptions, then you have intentions. Intention for forms, intention for sounds, intention for smells, taste, tactile sensation, and so on. So after eye contact, then you have feeling, then you have perception, then followed by intention. So perception and intention is not usually mentioned a lot in the dependent origination model. So we're going to just take note of this. Okay, then the next one is craving. So after feeling, normally in the dependent origination model, craving arises after feeling. So by in between feeling and craving, you have these two more processes, this perception and forms. You need to cognize, you need to make sense of what it is first, then you have certain intention towards it, then kind of gives rise to craving. So you crave for the different senses, your eye, your nose, tongue, body, and mind, right? I mean, the different pleasures of the world, and thought directed at forms, thought directed at the different senses. So after craving, then you have directed thought, and then evaluation of forms, evaluation of sound, and so on. So interestingly, I think Ajahn Thanissaro also translated this Vittaka Vichara in the first jhana as directed thought and evaluation. Right? So probably, I don't know, maybe it's an interpretation issue. It's like, how can craving for senses lead to the first jhanas? So directed thoughts here would mean, if you want to follow the dependent origination model, would mean clinging, right? Because once you crave for the forms, you keep on directing your thoughts at them. The mind likes to replay them over and over again. It clings already. So you keep on directing the thoughts at the nice food, the nice music, the nice whatever. So you keep directing the thought. So it's like super glue. The mind just like to replay these things over and over again. It's like an addiction. We call it clinging. And then you have this evaluation. So these two is basically repetition. You try to make sense. You try to foreshadow, evaluate, and try to mix stories and dramas out of it. So I would take it that this evaluation would mean something close to becoming. You become part of the dramas. You try to maybe add salt and pepper and exaggerate the situation in the mind. And so this is directed thought and evaluation in this context. Okay, this is called the noble truth of the origination of stress. So once you have various cravings, then you have these clinging and becoming, right? So these are causes of suffering. And if you want to link it to the first noble truth, then you have birth, aging, sickness, and death, which kind of completes the dependent origination cycle. Right? So normally in the dependent origination cycle, after you have craving, then you have this clinging, after clinging, becoming, and becoming, then there's birth, aging, sickness, and death. So birth, aging, sickness, and death will be the first noble truth on suffering. Right, so now we covered this second noble truth. And for the third noble truth would be the opposite of the second noble truth. So I'll just quickly run through. And what is the noble truth of the cessation of stress, the remainderless fading and cessation, renunciation, relinquishment, release, and letting go of that very craving? And where, when being abandoned, is this craving abandoned? And where, when ceasing, does it cease? Whatever seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world, that is where, when being abandoned, this craving is abandoned. That is where, when ceasing, it ceases. Right, so basically, it's kind of the opposite of the previous one. Okay, so again, repetition. Basically, earlier on is clinging, right? So now it's abandoning. So you want to cease this craving, you just need to abandon. So now it just talks about abandoning, and the fourth noble truth will talk about the methodology on how to abandon. So normally in the reverse order, yeah, dependent origination, there's a forward order and the reverse order. Forward order would be the second and the first noble truth, and the reverse order would be this one, the third noble truth. Okay, so the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the intellect, form, sound, smell, taste, tactile sensation, ideas, when it sees, right, then it conditions the consciousness to cease as well. And when eye contact, all these cease, and then you have the feeling ceasing and so on. Okay, so I would just like to mention here, what does it mean that the eye ceases? So in the middle way, it is not annihilation. So when some people will interpret it, if there's no eye, then you cannot see already what? Then there won't be eye consciousness. So they will think, if a person die, that means you will cease. So no, that's not how it works. So the cessation here we'll mention in the fourth noble truth. There is a transcendental way of cessation. It is not the physical eradication. It is the eradication of the defilements. So like, for example, the Buddha and the enlightened monks at his time, when they're enlightened, they were still alive, they are walking and moving around, but they were talking about cessation. Right? So, but how can you say that their eyes are gone or their ears are gone? Yeah, their eyes are there, their senses are there, their five aggregates are still there, but they have experienced this cessation and unlocked this enlightened mind. So this is the cessation model. Okay, so after contact, then you have feeling, you cease feeling, you cease perception, and you cease intention for the different senses, and you cease craving. And you cease craving. And once you cease craving, you cease the directed forms, and you cease evaluation. Right? So that is called the noble truth of the cessation of stress. So this is the third noble truth. So basically it's the total opposite of the second noble truth. And once you do not have this clinging and becoming, then there won't be this birth, aging, sickness, death, and so on. Okay, so this is the fourth noble truth. And what is the noble truth of the path of practice leading to the cessation of stress? Right, so this is the method. Normally, if a person just read dependent origination, the reverse order, they will just tell you, you cease loss, how to cease, never mentioned. So this is the more complete kind of instruction. in order to seize all the different links, you need to apply this Noble Eightfold Path. So you have all the eight. The first one, right view. Second, right resolve. Third one, right speech, right action, right livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. So total, these are the Noble Eightfold Path. So it's represented by the wheel over here. And we need to turn the entire wheel, the 8 spokes together. A person cannot say, oh, I just want to have right concentration. I don't want to practice right speech, right action. And a person can start cursing and swearing, telling lies, harsh speech. No, it doesn't work. Then they won't have the right concentration. Yeah, they may claim to be sitting for very long, but then that's not the jhanas. Huh? Okay. Okay, what is right view? Knowledge with regard to stress, knowledge with regard to origination of stress, knowledge with regard to cessation of stress, knowledge with regard to the way of practice leading to the cessation of stress. This is called right view. So again, back to square one. So the first of the Noble Eightfold Path is actually the Four Noble Truths. And the number 4, the fourth Noble Truth, is equals to the Noble Eightfold Path. So basically, we can just run right into the Eightfold Path and we can cover the Four Noble Truths. So why you need to have this right view, right? A person need to know the practice is to overcome stress, to overcome craving, yeah? Understand this craving that leads to the stress and how to overcome it. If not, a person come and practice for all kinds of funny reasons. They come and to the temple, or they come to the meditation class and they want to learn how to predict 4D numbers, or they want to do some healing, special healing of the body, mundane stuff, how to have long life, good health, that kind of stuff. So no. So the idea of the Noble Eightfold Path is to tackle the craving and overcome suffering. Not to end suffering in the mundane physical sense. Yeah, you want to end birth. You want to end sickness in the mundane sense. You go and see the doctor. So there are mundane ways to deal with stress or suffering. But if you want to talk about the spiritual path, the Noble Eightfold Path, then it is a totally different thing. It is to overcome the root cause of this stress and anxiety. Okay, so the sort of execution starts here with right resolve, aspiring to renunciation, to freedom from ill will, to harmlessness. This is called right resolve. Okay, so right thoughts here, the term here, renunciation, means letting go. So when a person practices generosity, it's part of letting go. When a person think of impermanence, that is also part of letting go. All right, so anything that leads to letting go. So that is the term renunciation here. Freedom from ill will. So that is loving kindness, and harmlessness. So that is compassion. Because cruelty means to harm people, and compassion is to wish people free from harm. Yeah, so we have to practice all this. So it's called right resolve. And the third one, what is right speech? So you have all the 4 kinds of right speeches: abstaining from lying, divisive speech, from abusive speech, from idle chatter. This is called right speech. So earlier on, when we chanted the precept, even though we just talk about musavada, abstain from lying, but in the larger sense, if you want to talk about you want to practice truthfulness, or you want to seek the truth, it is about the inner truth. You want to seek the inner peace, the inner truth. You cannot have inner peace and truth from having all this, divisive speech, abusive speech, idle chatter. So this right speech, even the practice holistically, not just refrain from lying, but refrain from all the other four kinds of wrong speeches. Okay, then the next one, right action. Abstaining from taking life, from stealing, and from illicit sex. This is called right action. Right, so these are the other three precepts that you have. Interestingly, there's no mention of alcohol. That doesn't mean you can go ahead with the alcohol, because once a person takes alcohol, they go marble and they become heedless, and they might accidentally, break, commit all those funny actions and break all the other precepts. So the whole idea is to practice this alertness, mindfulness, and heedfulness. So this is part of the precepts. Okay, then the next one, right livelihood. There's a case where a disciple of the noble ones, having abandoned dishonest livelihood, keeps his life going with right livelihood. And it's called right livelihood. So very short and sweet, basically honest livelihood. You do not harm anyone directly. So there are 5 traits, 5 kind of trait for a lay person to avoid. So you have this thing called avoid trading in weapon, avoid trading in living beings like human trafficking, animal trafficking, avoid trading in meat, buy and sell meat, so avoid that. Avoid trading in intoxicants, alcohol. So that's why we have the precept of not consuming alcohol. And the 5th one, avoid trading in poison. Right, so these are the 5 kinds of trade that a lay person should avoid. But nowadays, modern times, if there are any more kind of occupations that is harmful, please avoid them. Huh? And what is right effort? So we kind of covered it in the earlier portion also, the 4 right efforts in the 4th foundation of mindfulness with regard to handling of the hindrances and also the fetters. Okay, so I'll just briefly read through the definition of right effort. There's the case where a monk generates desire, endeavors, arouses persistence, upholds, and exerts his intent for the sake of the non-arising of evil, unskillful qualities that have not yet arisen, for the sake of abandoning of evil, unskillful qualities that have arisen, for the sake of arising of skillful qualities that have not yet arisen, and for the maintenance, non-confusion, increase, plenitude, development, and culmination of skillful qualities that have arisen. This is called right effort. So there are 2 for unwholesome or unskillful states of unskillful qualities. It could be thoughts of greed or anger. It could be the precepts of killing and stealing and so on. So a person needs to generate desire. So this desire here, there's another word for it. The positive desire is called chanda. The negative desire that is part of the second noble truth that causes suffering is called tanha. So these are 2 very different kinds of desire. So positive desire is very encouraged in Buddhism. So it is not totally no desire that don't have the will to do anything. So no, you need to generate positive desire. Okay. So if a person arouses this persistence, okay. So the first right effort is to not let evil, unskillful qualities arise. So if it has not yet arisen, do not let it arise. So this is the first right effort. But if it has arisen, then you should abandon, abandon this unskillful qualities. So that is the second right effort. And the third right effort is to let the arising of skillful qualities, things like loving kindness, compassion, generosity, wisdom, so on and so forth. So anything that's positive and skillful, then you should create them, you should generate them. So that's the third kind of right effort. And the fourth kind of right effort is to maintain and perfect these qualities, these wholesome qualities. So these are the four kinds of right efforts. Any questions at this point of time? If not, I'll just carry on. Okay, so I'll just move on. So right mindfulness is basically the entire of this series, the four foundation of mindfulness. Again, brief summary. There's a case where a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress. With reference to the world, he remains focused on feelings in and of himself, and the mind in and of itself, and mental qualities in and of themselves. So these are four foundations of mindfulness. Ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. This is called right mindfulness. Yeah, so the mindfulness here, you need to reduce greed and distress. So that's the indicator. So if, let's say, the more you practice, the more greedy, the more anxiety, the more tension, then something is wrong somewhere. Huh? Need to troubleshoot. Okay, and the last one, what is right concentration? So I'll just briefly read through. So these are the four jhanas. So the first jhana, and what is right concentration? There's a case where a monk, quite withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful mental qualities, enters and remains in the first jhana. Rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. Right, so you see this term again, directed thought and evaluation. So earlier on in the so-called the definition of the second noble truth, it mentions of directed thought and evaluation after craving. So in this case, there is also directed thought and evaluation, but it is not the same as the one being mentioned earlier. Okay, and the second jhana, with stealing of the directed thoughts and evaluations, he enters and remains in the second jhana, rapture and pleasure born of composure, unification of awareness, free from directed thought and evaluation, internal assurance. Okay, so basically in the second level of concentration, more or less the same emotion as the first level. You have this rapture and pleasure, but then it has no more directed thought and evaluation. So that's the second jhana. So for the third jhana, with the fading of rapture, he remains equanimous, mindful, alert, and senses pleasure with the body. He enters and remains in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare, equanimous and mindful, he has pleasant abiding. So down here, so for the third level of concentration, basically it's the disappearance of rapture. So they left with pleasure of the body, right? So another translation would be rapture would be joy, pleasure would be happiness. So they left with happiness and some equanimity. So in the third jhana, it has pleasure and equanimity. So in the third jhana, you can still feel the body, senses pleasure with the body. So some people think, first jhana have directed thought and evaluation. Second jhana means don't have. That means second jhana, no thinking already. Yeah, so actually there's lots of thought processes going on. So directed thought and evaluation here, in my opinion, would be the background cluttering thought processes, useless to the meditation. yeah, useless to the meditation. And once a person has a second level, these background cluttering thought processes will disappear. Most scholars, most academics who are maybe not too familiar with the practice of jhanas, they will say directed thought and evaluation is to investigate. So in the first level of concentration, you need to stay with the meditation object and investigate the meditation object. So that is their definition. Whereas in future, or maybe we might have mentioned before in the most other suttas, like the Dipa Sutta, DIPA, all the jhanas, the first jhana to the fourth jhana, all the way to the formless concentrations, one needs to be mindful of the concentration on the in and out breathing. So the meditator also needs to focus on the in and out breathing. They cannot say, okay, I stop focusing on my in and out breath, just observe the jhanas will do. No. So that's why in our routine, we always keep turning the Dhamma wheel, keep rowing the boat, keep on generating right thought and right effort. So this is, you need to turn the Dhamma wheel, because once you stop, then the mind will drift away. Right? So that is the our routine. Okay, so for the fourth jhana, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, as with earlier disappearance of elation and distress, he enters and remains in the fourth jhana, purity of equanimity and mindfulness. Neither pleasure nor pain. This is called right concentration. Okay, so these are the Noble Eightfold Path being mentioned here. And again, the same stock formula mentioned throughout the four foundation of mindfulness. So you need to focus this quality internally, right? Mental qualities in our own of themselves, or externally on mental qualities in and of themselves. So whatever sense media, your sense organ you detect inside or outside, whatever craving that arises inside the body, outside the body, you need to be aware how it arises, how it passes away. Eh? So the key emphasis here, phenomenon, arising, origination, and passing away. So mindfulness is not just being aware of the situation alone and without reflection. There must be a component of reflection. Eh? So this is the reflection of impermanence. And this is how you gain detachment, not clinging to the world. Because if you do not reflect on impermanence, the mind will naturally cling. The mind is deluded, it will naturally cling. So this is the nature of the mind. All right, so this is more or less the end and the eventual conclusion. So the good news, if anyone would develop these four frames of reference, yeah, which is the four foundation of mindfulness, in this way for 7 years, one of two fruits can be expected for him. Either gnosis right here and now, that means arahanthood, or if there be any remnant of clinging sustenance, then they become a non-returner. So basically the Buddha mentioned either you become fully enlightened, arahant, or one step below, which is non-returner, anagami. So these are the promise by the Buddha, so guaranteed. So non-returner also quite close to being an arahant, because non-returner has no more greed and anger. So the good news would be, let alone 7 years. If anyone were develop these four frames of reference in this way for 6 years, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the Buddha is giving discount, more and more discount. 7 months, 6 months, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, half a month, 7 days. So the Buddha gives 7 days. If a person were to practice diligently, as long as they are awake, right? This mindfulness, or the four foundation of mindfulness, one of the two fruits can be expected for him, either gnosis or non-returning. So the third pointer here, This is the direct path for the purification of beings. So this is to reiterate the opening statement of the sutta for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of unbinding. In other words, the four frames of reference, thus was it said, and in reference to this was it said. That is what the Blessed One said, gratified. The monks delighted in the Blessed One's words. So this is the end. I stop the sharing. Okay, so I open the floor to Q&A. We kind of overextended the sharing, kind of run through the theory. Probably next week we're going to start another topic requested by Roy. Is Roy here? Yeah, so next week we're going to talk a bit about the Qingming and stuff like that. Okay, so any questions on the ground regarding the Maha Satipatthana Sutta? No questions.
Bhante, if we practice according to the Eightfold Path, we will be able to attain the jhanas, is it?
So interestingly, jhanas may not be necessary for enlightenment. Yeah, so like the case where I think I ever discussed about it in the Asubha Sutta, the Buddha was comparing Asubha practitioners, which is the impurity of the body practitioners, versus jhana practitioners. So the Buddha was like implying impurities of body practitioners like cannot achieve jhanas like that. So either case, the impurities of body practitioners, the Buddha call it the painful path or the unpleasant path, because they have to visualize or look at the disgusting parts of the body, you know, in internal organs, the blood, and so on. So when they contemplate on this, they might have lots of unpleasant feelings. So how fast or slow they can reach enlightenment depends on their faculties. How much faith, effort, mindfulness, the concentration, and wisdom. So these are the faculties. So that's for the impurities of body practitioners. So for the jhana practitioners, the Buddha mentioned that they are the pleasant path. Pleasant path, because the practitioner will experience this joy, happiness, equanimity, and so on. So the same thing also. Depending on their faculties, the jhana practitioner can reach enlightenment slow or quick. So that is the sutta. So based on that sutta, it's not necessary for jhanas. So a person can practice all the right effort and everything, right thoughts, but without the right kind of meditation object, they won't have the jhanas. So different meditation objects will have different pros and cons. Not all meditation subjects can achieve jhanas or can achieve all the jhanas. So like in this particular sutta, the traditional way of contemplating the different parts of the body won't achieve jhanas. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? No questions? Okay, then we go for a 5-minute break. Let me check my screen share. I presume everyone is okay. Okay, so we can start the guided meditation. So you find a comfortable sitting posture, make sure your back is upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, so today we might attempt to do a different meditation subject, see how it works. So we're going to feel the breath or feel the breathing. Okay, for those who just joined, we just started on the meditation. So we are going to relax the body. So how are we going to relax the body? We're going to feel the four element sensations of the body. We call this mindfulness of the body. So there's no need to visualize. We're just going to feel the sensations of the body. So we call this the body sense door. You're going to have some contact. Every time any sensation appear, we're going to reduce that craving by wishing it well and happy. So new sensation appear means new contact. So there's no way to leave your mind idle. Every moment you detect something, you need to generate the right thought. So these sensations, we classify them as the four elements: earth, fire, wind, water. Earth represents any hard or soft sensations. Fire is hot and cold. Wind is fast, slow movements. And water is the moist or dry sensations. So these are just general guidelines. If you cannot figure out which element this sensation belongs, you don't have to crack your brain. You just wish it well and happy. So we are learning to make peace with those sensations. We are not struggling. We are not fighting. We are not controlling. Let it appear naturally, and we just wish them well and happy like guests. So the sensations are the evidence, part of the right mindfulness. And the labeling, wishing it well and happy, that's part of right thought. And the repetition is called right effort. You want to maintain and develop these skillful qualities. And you can check the state of mind. Is it getting more stress and tension, or is it getting lesser? So that will determine your right view. If a person, the more they meditate, the more stressful, the more tensed up, means they have other kinds of expectation, other kinds of cravings. But if they manage to abandon that craving, then the stress should reduce or subside. Once you're quite well adjusted with the body or not too reactive with the body, we're going to feel the breath, feel the breathing, breath meditation. So we are going to choose a location where you want to feel the in and out breathing. So there are many systems, many schools, many teachers, and they have different locations of feeling the breath. Some would feel it below the nostrils, some would want to feel it at the diaphragm, some would want to feel the entire body. To me, it doesn't matter. But for beginners, it's good to choose a small location, a small area. You don't have to be too distracted with a large area. So you can choose below the nostril, above the upper lip. That is one recommended position. Or you can maybe observe the diaphragm, in and out breathing of the diaphragm. That could be another possibility. So you just pick one and you stick with that throughout the entire routine. And once you have chosen the area where you want to place your attention, we call this the breath body. So that is one aspect to look out for, mindfulness of the body. So we let our in and out breathing be natural, no need to control. Let it be your natural reflex action. But when you breathe in and out, there must be value addedness also, must be in line with the Noble Eightfold Path, because anybody can breathe. Any non-spiritual person can also breathe. So what we're going to do, inhalation, we wish the breath well. Exhalation, wish the breath happy. So that is part of the right thought to reduce aversion. So the key factor is the labeling. Inhale, wish the breath well. Exhale, wish the breath happy. So in no way we are training the breath. We are actually training the mind to let go of this or reduce this craving. Okay, so the mind should also settle down. It's like sedimentation. So we take note of this mind settling down. So we call this mindfulness of state of mind. Is the mind agitated? Is it running around? Is it settling down? Right, so this is part of the third foundation of mindfulness. And interestingly, in the breath meditation, there are 16 steps for the mindfulness of feeling part. Somehow not yet impermanence of the pleasant, unpleasant feelings, but in the breath meditation sutta, it is just to be aware of the rapture of the breath, pleasure of the breath. So that's why we go along with loving kindness. When we breathe in, wish the breath well. Breathe out, wish the breath happy. So this pleasure will sort of create an incentive for the mind to come back to the meditation subject. If you find your mind settled or relatively settled, we call this settling of mental fabrication. Then there's one more layer, settling of craving fabrications. So now we're going to reduce greed by reflecting on impermanence. So for in and out breath, instead of labeling well and happy, we're going to replace it with impermanence or any label associated with impermanence. You can call it rising, falling, origination, passing away. Just pick your favorite and keep repeating. We also covered the 7 factors of awakening. So even in this particular phase, when there's no jhanas, it can also trigger this cessation or these factors of awakening. If when there's real detachment, and a sudden surge of joy should appear, and the rest of the chain reaction should follow through, and the joy should disappear and calm down, and so on. So that joy is not yet jhanas. This is part of the 7 factors of awakening, and it can occur with or without the jhanas. So regardless of what you experience, keep on mindful of this impermanence of the breathing. As part of mindfulness of the body, it must be there, in and out breathing. And then you can observe the state of mind, the mindfulness of the third foundation. Can the mind settle further? Can it calm down further? So we are not pushing the mind to settle down. It's a natural byproduct of settling. The emphasis is on the right thought. And once you think the mind has settled to like a point beyond settling, it cannot settle any further, we call this the stability point. So for those who are not yet settled, take your time. For those who are quite settled or you find the rate of settling is negligible, then you take this as the stability point. So normally in our routine, we call this the baseline emotion. So in this particular case, it has a bit of insight to it. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence of the in and out breathing. And so we take note of the emotion of this baseline level, because if you really want to differentiate the different jhanas, we are going to use the emotion, the jhana factors basically as a guide to differentiate them. So in this current point, this is the baseline control. We remember this, a neutral, usually neutral, very bland kind of emotion. And whenever you are ready, you can make a wish to release the mind, let go of the mind. So you just tell the mind to let go, and you observe any changes in the state of mind, the emotion especially. Okay, let's say that neutral emotion has evolved to something more pleasurable, and that's the indicator for the first level. So the first level will have this joy and happiness. So what we're going to do is multitask. We take note of this state of mind, this emotion, and continue with mindfulness of impermanence of the breathing. Multitask. Because if you just take note of that emotion alone, then it will be subject to clinging. But if we observe impermanence of the breathing, it will kind of cool the mind down at the same time. And once the mind has calmed down for the first level of concentration, then you can familiarize or sort of enjoy this first level, but not forgetting to keep reflecting on the impermanence of the breathing. So you keep on turning the Dhamma wheel, keep rowing the boat. So for those who are experiencing it for the first time, if you cannot differentiate between joy and happiness, doesn't matter. You just take it wholesale. Okay, this is a pleasant emotion. The main thing is for now, you just remember how is it like, and continue to be mindful of this impermanence of the breathing. So unlike the 7 factors of awakening, this joy and happiness will maintain there as long as you put in the causes. So the jhanic joy and happiness is supposedly more long-lasting as long as you put in the causes. Okay, once you have familiarized with this first level of concentration, make sure you take note of two things: that the mind is calm and settled. That's first criteria. Second criteria is that you have taken note of this emotion. If you cannot differentiate the factors for now, doesn't matter. Just remember this emotion, and we can use it to compare with the other states of mind later. Okay, so whenever you are ready, we're doing the same thing. We're making a wish to let go of this first level of concentration. So just a gentle wish of letting go, just like letting go of a balloon. You let go of the string, you release, and you observe the state of mind, any changes in any phenomenon, any emotion. And if, let's say, the joy and happy emotion become more distinct or get clearer, and that would be the indicator of the second level of concentration. And due to the disappearance of certain cluttering, it appears clearer. So we're going to multitask again. We're going to take note of this emotion and also simultaneously the impermanence of the breathing. So keep reflecting on the impermanence of the breathing while taking note of this emotion. And if that craving is quite settled down, and we can familiarize ourselves with this second level of concentration, emphasis is always on the reflection of impermanence of the breathing. Okay, so we make sure we fulfill two criteria. Again, the mind needs to be calm, the craving level is down, and the second criteria, we take note of the emotion. So second level, we remember this emotion at this point of time. If you cannot separate what is joy or happiness, doesn't matter, just remember this emotion. Currently in the second level of concentration, both joy and happiness are still there. And whenever you are ready, then we can let go of the mind, just like letting go of a balloon. So once you release the mind or release the string, then you observe any changes in phenomenon, changes in the emotion especially. If you experience a different quality of pleasant emotion, then that would be the third level of concentration. So it has only happiness and no more joy. Or if I can just translation, only pleasure and no more rapture. So we're going to just take note of this emotion of happiness and simultaneously the impermanence of the breathing for the craving formations to settle down. And the same thing, once the mind is quite settled down, then you can familiarize yourselves with the third level. Emphasis is on the impermanence of the breathing. Okay, then we make sure we fulfill the two criteria. First criteria, the mind is calm and settled. Second criteria is that we remember this emotion. So in a third level, it's just this factor of happiness and a bit of equanimity. So there's no more joy. So to differentiate between joy and happiness, you need to transit between the second and the third level. So it doesn't matter at this point of time. Whenever you are ready, then you can release the mind, just like letting go of a balloon. And once you have let go of the mind, you observe any changes in phenomenon, changes in emotion especially. If you experience a kind of a refreshing kind of experience, the joy or happiness is gone, you get a neutral and alert, refreshing experience, that would be equanimity. So we're going to multitask, take note of this equanimity and the impermanence of the breathing for the craving formations to settle down. If the mind is quite settled down, then you can familiarize yourselves with the fourth level. Emphasis is on impermanence of the breathing. Okay, so this jhana through breath meditation won't sustain throughout the whole day as long as we are moving around. So there's a more sustainable option. You can do the 4 sublime states, or you can do the 6 recollections, think on the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, your virtuous qualities, your dana, and this Devatanusati. So there are many kinds of subjects that you can do throughout the whole day. And so before we conclude, same gentle reminder: in all activities, standing, sitting, walking, lying down, you can be mindful of impermanence. And with that, we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, and formally still can generate right thought. Okay, any problems or questions?
Bante,
Yes.
good evening, Bante. Yes,
Good evening.
Bante. Yes, can I check with you?
Yeah.
Craving,
Mhm.
clinging, and attachment leads to becoming.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then can I also say that cessation leads to unbecoming?
Yeah, the term for nibbana eventually will be unbecoming. Yeah.
Okay, that means is this unbecoming is the same. Is found in the third noble truth.
Third noble
Cessation.
truth. Yeah, cessation. Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah.
means it's also the same as unbecoming.
Unbecoming will be more like the end product. Yeah. So as long as we think of impermanence and detachment, we're actually in the process of cessation.
Okay, when you say that the end parts, is it that means is the third noble truth?
The completion of the third noble truth.
Completion, but it also can be found in second noble truth.
Second noble truth would be the opposite of the third. The second one is you relish, you welcome those sensations, you welcome the sense objects, you welcome your sense organs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, unbecoming is also a form of suffering.
Unbecoming. No, because unbecoming would be unconditioned. It's an unconditioned state. You do not sort of born or reappear. Yeah.
Because you want to be unbecoming. That means you want to get to that stage. So isn't it a form of suffering as well? Because you crave to be unbecoming. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm confused about this. Yes.
Yeah, so it's good to have like right view that to where we are heading to. So it's good to have an initial right view. And then next we have the right effort, which is chanda, the desire to apply the right step, the right technique. So a lot of times people suffer in meditation is because they have a certain idea or concept, but they lack the correct technique. And the more they want to achieve the result, then the more they suffer.
Oh,
So
okay. That means
yeah.
You're saying that the unbecoming, if let's say I were to that means focus on chanda, that means that is actually a good form of chanda. Am I right?
Yeah,
That is a good form of
desire.
unbecoming.
Yeah. To eventually reach unbecoming. So unbecoming is more like the end product, but in between there's lots of steps. Yeah.
Okay. That's the end of third noble truth, Bante.
Yep.
Okay. Can understand, Bante. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
It's just like, for example, if let's say I do not know how to cook, then I imagine I want to cook, let's say a nice dish, I don't know, maybe fried noodles, I don't know, yeah, maybe example. So I can have an idea and concept, but I do not know how to cook. So the more I try to mess around in the kitchen and the kind of rubbish I come out, I will get very frustrated. Yeah. Something like that. So you must know the technique and also the correct steps. Yeah. All right. If there's no issues, then we can end off with the dedication chant. Anumodana, dedication of merits. Akasata Japumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Loka Sasanang Etavata Ja Amhehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabe Deva Sabe Puta Sabe Sata Numodantu Sabha Sampati Siddhya. Dedication of merits to the departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu Yava Nibbana Patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we end off by paying respects to the Buddha by bowing 3 times. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so that's the end of the session. Good night, everyone.